Good evening. I'm your host, Karen Hubis. This show is a weekly series called the Network of Global Corporate Control that has been coming to you from DCTV for over 2 years. Today's segment is called People Stay Calm, thanks to DCTV, Carmen Stanley, Director, Maurice Jackson, Audio and Prompter, and Cruchet Starnes, Floor Director. And what I tweeted was also the insolvent Banking Cartel wants to provoke you during the global currency reset. And this is a letter to Wolfgang Struck. I see that the 2%ers are communicating to me through you. These 2%ers are still very confused about the power transition model, which is 95% accurate and shows that coalitions have formed for the rule of law, and that these 2%ers are subject to the rule of law. Jason Erb removed this link to the power transition model developed by the National War College, and that's in the teleprompter. For other links to the power transition model, I'm showing them in the teleprompter. And for my expose of Jason Erb, I'm giving you a link to a show that he had. And I said in a tweet, I don't care what you say about me as long as you say something about me, and as long as you spell my name right. Whatever motivated Josh Tolley to give Jason Erb airtime so that he could attribute positions to me that I don't hold. I'm not talking about the gold standard. I am talking about minting gold currency, coins, leaf, and aurum from the gold in the global debt facility. The countries can apply to the global debt facility for more gold as their economies grow, and after 20% of their currency is in locally issued currencies, or they can simply back their currency with any asset of value, petroleum, bananas, you name it, whatever the market will bear, because using money to exert control will end, along with legal tender laws. Jason has been using his podium to attack me because the World Bank bureaucracy is still intimidated by the banking cartel. When I was inside the World Bank, I tried to derail the goon squad known as the Institutional Integrity Department that fires all the whistleblowers. And I also tried to implement human resources reform under something called the Strategic Compact with the Board of Executive Directors. But this was promptly rolled back instead of monitoring the reform as I proposed. And here is where that little power struggle now stands, and I'm showing a link to that. Obviously, the banking cartel is now hanging on by a thread. It's trying desperately to buy up the federal gold bullion certificates held by the global debt facility that render the network of global corporate control insolvent, taking compounded interest into account. Why aren't Jason and Josh dealing with that issue? And here is a recent question and answer session on where the global reset now stands, and that's linked in the teleprompter. And I also tell them to look at CT Corporation, and that is actually a follow-on from the Dutch East Indies Company. And I'm writing to a man named Hans. Thank you for forwarding me this video. Academia doesn't do a good job explaining our history and leaves more questions than it answers. The alternative media, like a website about the East India Company, tries to hide reality as well. This site at least shows that the Dutch East Indies Company and the Dutch Empire may have had something to do with current reality. Our world has many hidden aspects. So the thing about Holland is that It is where the first corporation, the East India Company, started. And you can see from a tweet in October 2016 that a Dutch company, Wolters Kluwer, is the agent for most of the companies in the world. This information was forwarded from a friend, and I did some checking, and that friend said, "Holy cow, these are some very bad guys. This is huge." The top of the heap, listed as CT Corporation System, an Idaho Secretary of State in 1936. Their registered agent is the Corporation Trust Company, which is the registered agent for just about every corporation in the country and the world. CT Corporation System is also a registered agent. It says they're a foreign to Idaho Corporation, a Delaware corporation, but Delaware Secretary of State's business entity database is closed until tomorrow. Actually, they are one and the same. The largest in the world, agent information, the Corporation Trust Company, and it's in Wilmington, Delaware. And it's also known as CT Corporation System. CT, or the Corporation Trust Company, is wholly owned by Wolters Kluwer, which is a multinational information services company based in the Netherlands, with operations in over 35 countries. CT is the umbrella brand for two businesses, CT Corporation and CT Lien Solutions. CT Corporation is the largest registered agent service firm in the world. They want to control all the property in the world. And I said again to Wolfgang, your legal analysis has ignored the 98%ers, the people who are the beneficiaries of the assets in the global debt facility. The 2%ers can't amend a document without the approval of the 188 ministers of finance who represent the beneficiaries. The 2%ers left out the lawyer of the Bretton Woods institutions. The 2%ers had no authority to change what Jose Rizal put into place with the bilateral Mansfield Breakthrough Successor Agreement. Read paragraph 6. And by the way, Jason Erb is an officer of the Wolters Kluwer Corporation. That was something that you can see if you look at the teleprompter. And I say, under the bilateral Mansfield Breakthrough Successor Agreement, anyone who gets money from the global debt facility or gets a withdrawal must be authenticated by the Board of Governors of the World Bank and the IMF. And there's an interview which YouTube removed. The 2%ers should have all stepped down then. And YouTube, of course, is owned by Google, and Google was created by the CIA. The death and destruction since May 21st, 2013 is something that the 2%ers are going to have to answer for. I called the Secret Service on the 4th of December in 2014, and I asked them to guarantee to Barack Obama that he would not be killed for doing his real job in representing the American people. The Secret Service hung up on me, and that's because the Secret Service is working for the network of global corporate control. If the 2%ers and the Secret Service don't want to be torn from limb to limb by the people's justice and would prefer the rule of law, now is the time for them to step aside. And then I signed off, and I'll read you what Wolfgang has sent me a little bit later. And then this is the letter that I wrote to the Secret Service in 2013 to Miss Julia Pearson. Dear Miss Pearson, the Secret Service is authorized to participate in the planning, coordination, and implementation of security operations as special events of national significance. Yesterday, a Secret Service officer whose name badge had Schleck written on it prevented me from attending the meeting and informed me that I would be arrested if I didn't leave the secure area. This was illegal. I am a World Bank lawyer who reported securities laws violations to the U.S. Congress, including that the World Bank's Board of Executive Directors were being blackmailed when they fired Paul Wolfowitz for giving an exorbitant pay raise to his girlfriend. I warned the Secretary of Defense on August 6, 2008, that the serious governance issues at the World Bank were a security risk to world order. Although the U.S. Congress wrote 4 letters to the World Bank on my behalf, I was fired in retaliation. The U.S. Congress called for a GAO inquiry into this corruption, but the World Bank stonewalled. The U.S. Congress is now requiring results that end the effects of retaliation before the U.S. contribution to the capital increase can be dispersed, and then I cite the section of the Appropriations Act. And by the way, when the Treasury Department gave a false certification, I reported that, and that was when the Secretary Geithner was fired. The Board of Executive Directors reinstated me in 2009, but I was barred access to the World Bank buildings illegally. The financial statements of an issuer with internal control lapses of this nature must receive qualified audits. I bought an IBRD bond and sued to bring the IBRD into compliance. The World Bank's Development Committee settled my lawsuit on the 20th of December 2012. I've informed the chair of the Judicial Conference Executive Committee and Commander Michael Reese of the D.C. 2nd District Police that I'm entitled to reinstatement under the law. Dr. Marek Belka, he was the former chair of the Board of Governors. And I gave the full name of the Board of Governors. That's the the Development Committee. That's the Joint Ministerial Committee of the Boards of Governors of the bank and the Fund on the Transfer of Real Resources to Developing Countries. They authorized the issuance to me of a badge for the spring meetings of the World Bank Group and International Monetary Fund, which are ongoing. And you can see the copy of my badge. It would be unfortunate if the U.S. Secret Service again prevents me from attending the rest of the World Bank meetings when I'm legally authorized to do so. I attempted to explain to your duty officer why that would present a reputational risk for the U.S. Secret Service and referred to the economic power documented, and that's the study by Glatfelder and Battiston. Your duty officer responded by questioning my sanity. This is highly inappropriate. The Secret Service and Department of Homeland Security need to improve training for duty officers in this regard. And then I signed that. And then you can see in the teleprompter the security badge for the meetings that the Secret Service threw me out of. And I'm also going to read you a fax that I sent to the Executive Committee of the Judicial Conference, and also an email that I sent to Chris Armstrong, who was then working for Senator Grassley on the Committee on Finance. Dear Judge Traxler, the Ministers of Finance of 188 members of the Bretton Woods organizations are meeting tomorrow. Their first order of business is to consider clerical error in the federal courts on a matter involving the integrity of the international financial system and licensing of the legal and accounting professions. And this referred to a letter that I wrote to the Judicial Conference on the 19th of January. The Chief Justices of the state Supreme Courts are all familiar with this matter, as are the Attorneys General and Governors. The public remains largely ignorant due to abuse of the economic power identified in that study. After my testimony in UK and EU parliaments, an accurate stakeholder analysis is predicting that this matter will resolve in favor of the rule of law rather than a currency war. As I discussed today with your Chief Circuit Mediator, Mr. Thomas Ball III, confidence of U.S. citizens in their judiciary will be enhanced if the Judicial Conference acts at this time. And then I signed the letter. Now, of course, we have seen that the courts are actually, they're bogus. They're administrative hearings. And the judges are employees of the network of global corporate control. Now, this is an email to Chris Armstrong in 2008. I really appreciate your getting back to me. I told a friend in the World Bank's Human Resources Department about the need to reinstate me at the World Bank before the Appeals Committee finishes botching my case. And she gave me the name of the person to contact. Can we meet soon? Here are the developments. I met yesterday with Chad Kreikheimer, Senator Hagel's foreign policy legislative assistant. Chad asked me many good questions about the evidence to support my statements that the U.S. has been acting like a hegemon at the World Bank and that the Europeans want to end the gentleman's agreement as a result. I also stopped by to talk to Sherman Patrick at the Committee on Foreign Affairs, and I informed him verbally about the conflicts of interest in the latest mistake to separate out the function of Secretary General of ICSID from the General Counsel function at the World Bank, tampering with the General Counsel function and appointing Russell Reynolds, the executive search firm that advised the World Bank about the Sarbanes-Oxley governance problems at the bank when I was a candidate for General Counsel, to fill the ICSID Secretary General function is a frontal assault on the rule of law at the World Bank. The World Bank's Committee on Governance and Administrative Matters is required to be consulted whenever the General Counsel function is revised. This was not done. Playing cat and mouse with these serious governance issues at the World Bank is also a security risk to the world order, as I informed Chuck Hagel when he autographed his book, America, Our Next Chapter. When you get a chance for serious bedtime reading, in addition to Senator Hagel's book, take a look at The War Presidency. This is by the group which predicted 4 years ago that the gentleman's agreement would end if the U.S. didn't stop its hegemony at the World Bank. And of course, that actually happened in 2010. And here's from Wolfgang Struck. Dear Karen, further to our discussion, this for your information. In September 1976, Ferdinand Marcos and the President of the United States of America signed 2 documents that changed the world without changing the world, because the documents were held in secrecy by the powers that be. What does it say there? In the sovereign agreement between the President of the Philippines, Ferdinand Marcos, as the first party, and the President of the United States of America, Gerald Ford, as the second party. It was dated the 10th of September, 1976. It says, the first party paid 10,000 metric tons of gold worth $20 billion and bought the Philippines from the United States of America. Both parties agree that the first party or his designated successor, King Anthony Santiago Martin, shall administer and rule the Philippines and its people freely and without foreign interference, unless there is reported inhuman activities and other infringements against the majority of the people of the Philippine Islands. 3. The USA guarantees sovereignty to the Philippines to the first party before the world and to the world. In the other attached document, Certificate of Global Immunity, signed a few days later on the 4th of October, 1976, Gerald Ford for the United States of America and Queen Elizabeth for the Committee of 300, the secret world leaders, signed a document that guarantees that Marcos, as codename TVM LSM 666, is fully recognized and protected as the owner of all precious commodities buried and or found in the Philippines, from buried treasure including gold, platinum, diamonds, and historical assets of unlimited value. Tell me where I'm wrong, Wolfgang. And that was where I told Wolfgang, since the Board of Governors hadn't agreed to it, it's not valid. And then I tweeted to a Twitter account called Blondin Fun, and I said that Marcos stood up to Rockefeller and the Trilateral Commission, and I have links showing that. And then I'm answering Wolfgang's question. This is to answer the question on everyone's lips. Sorry, this is not Wolfgang's question. This is a question about when we're going to have the global currency reset. This is to answer that question as I spend the next several hours preparing the teleprompters, this teleprompter, for example, and also the one that was for the live program that we just aired. This is being pre-recorded for the 10th of October. And then there's somebody named Rodney who wrote, "Thank you, Karen, for all your tireless efforts. This may be a premature question, but have you any projected time frame when we will be getting real money instead of the Federal Reserve notes?" And I said, Rodney, we're all in this together, and so much depends on how we interact with each other. The banking cartel has only paper currencies backing them and is hanging on through their lies. A critical mass knows this. Will we accept Jose Rizal's gift of love, or will we all perish? The big point is that the likelihood the Coalition for the Rule of Law implements the global currency reset is over 90%. You can guess when this will happen along with the rest of us. Stay tuned. And then I wrote in December 2016, we, the Coalition for the Rule of Law that is in charge of the global currency reset, are in the middle of a currency war. We are the ones in charge. We are refusing to accept the will of the insolvent banking cartel. Yesterday, Venezuela's president, Nicolas Maduro, suspended eliminating the country's largest denomination bill, which had sparked cash shortages, chaos, and nationwide protests, saying the measure would be postponed until early January. Today, I advise the good people of Venezuela that we are in a peaceful global currency reset. I also referred to India's war on cash. On the 10th of November 2016, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi banned 500 rupee notes and 1,000 rupee banknotes, and he eliminated 88% of India's outstanding currency. Zero Hedge called this move a massive man-made disaster. India has been called a cash domino to fall. Digital money simply didn't take up the slack. The use of gold increased. However, the informal economy was harmed, along with the unbanked population and many businesses. Nearly half of India's GDP and 80% of its employment is generated by the informal economy. The country has now had to extend the time for implementing its cashless policy, if indeed this policy is not reversed. The Minister of Defense, Manohar Parrikar, used the confusion to escalate the dispute between Pakistan and India by military exercises in Bengal. West Bengal's chief minister criticized Manohar Parrikar for the ill-advised exercises. And then there's a memo about how Ferdinand Marcos was overthrown. And I'm writing an email to Jose Antonio Diaz. Thank you for sending me the link to the story how Marcos stood up to David Rockefeller, George Shultz, and Cardinal Sin. Yes, I already had a part of the puzzle you have so kindly furnished. I had a copy of the Trilateral Commission's offer to Marcos, which Marcos refused. The Trilateral Commission and CIA keep on failing in their efforts to steal humanity's gold and other wealth that Ferdinand Marcos gave to all of humanity. This is safe with the Board of Governors of the World Bank and IMF. Now it's up to the good people in the U.S. and the Coalition for the Rule of Law on the Board of Governors of the World Bank and International Monetary Fund to answer Ferdinand Marcos's prayer. For I know that, as I have said in many a speech before my own people and before the world, fate and destiny have decreed that the United States of America be the trustee of modern civilization against the threat of a possible second dark ages, and America cannot fail. Therefore, we, the Filipino people, come and bring to you a prayer. God, in His divine providence, may grant you guidance and strength in both your heart and hand, so that hand may be strong on the lever of power and save our humanity. If America fails, then the world is lost. As the Overseer Mandate Trustee for the world's wealth and the world's people, I am telling everyone that we are ending the corruption in the world's money in a global currency reset. As fake money and fake governments are exposed, people must remain calm so that we can exchange the paper for real money peacefully. Until next week, I'm your host, Karen Hudis.